It all started on a quiet afternoon when a simple disagreement turned into a full-blown neighborhood disaster. Imagine living peacefully in your home, only to have an HOA Karen march onto your property, claiming she had the authority to fix a problem you didn't even know existed. That's exactly what happened to one unlucky Redditor who shared that unbelievable story on Entitled People. This wasn't just a case of bossy behavior or a few heated words. This HOA Karen took things way too far. Armed with a wrench and a whole lot of attitude, she decided to tamper with a private water line, convinced she was doing the community a favor. Spoiler, she wasn't. Within minutes, water was gushing everywhere, causing damage not only to the property but also cutting off water to several nearby homes. Neighbors gathered, tensions rose, and when the homeowner confronted her, Karen didn't back down. In fact, she doubled down. But little did she know, someone had already called the police. What happened next shocked everyone standing there and made this Karen internet famous for all the wrong reasons. Was this just a misunderstanding blown out of proportion, or a calculated act of criminal mischief? Stick around, because you won't believe what happened when the cops finally showed up. Turns out, this wasn't Karen's first run-in with the neighborhood. According to a few locals, she had a long history of overstepping her boundaries, acting like the self-appointed queen of the HOA. She was known for handing out bogus violation notices, inspecting people's lawns with a ruler, and even taking photos of minor things like slightly crooked mailboxes. But messing with someone's private water line, that was a whole new level. The homeowner, who had just moved into the area a few months before, had no idea what kind of drama he was stepping into. He had barely finished unpacking when Karen started showing up uninvited, leaving aggressive notes about community standards. He tried to be polite at first, thinking she would eventually back off. Instead, it just made her more determined. That day, when Karen stormed onto his property with a wrench, she claimed the water line was a safety hazard that needed immediate correction. Of course, there was no official HOA notice, no inspection report, nothing. Just her word, her anger, and a serious lack of common sense. As the water kept pouring out into the street, curious neighbors gathered to watch the chaos unfold, whispering and filming on their phones. Meanwhile, the sound of sirens started growing louder in the distance. As the police cruisers pulled up, Karen stood there like she owned the place, arms crossed, acting like she was the victim. She even tried waving the officers over like she had called them herself. Meanwhile, the homeowner was trying to explain to the growing crowd that he had never given anyone permission to touch the water line, and he had no idea why Karen thought she had the right. Tension was thick in the air. Some neighbors backed the homeowner immediately, telling the cops they had seen everything. Others, especially a few older HOA loyalists, mumbled about keeping up appearances and defended Karen, saying she was just looking out for the neighborhood. One neighbor, who lived 2 houses down, stepped forward with video proof she had caught the entire thing on her doorbell camera. In the footage, Karen could be seen twisting the valve recklessly and then kicking at the pipe when it didn't move fast enough. The officers huddled together, watching the footage on a tiny phone screen, while Karen kept rambling about how the homeowner was in violation of HOA codes. But when they asked her for any real paperwork or authority to back it up, all she could produce was a crumpled sticky note with random scribbles. As the officers started taking statements, Karen's confident smile began to crack, but the real storm was just getting started. The officers, now clearly taking things seriously, started separating Karen and the homeowner to get their sides of the story. Karen kept insisting that she was acting in the best interest of the HOA, and that the homeowner should actually thank her for preventing a disaster. Meanwhile, the homeowner, growing more frustrated but still trying to stay calm, explained how he had recently paid a professional to inspect and certify all the water lines when he moved in. There had never been a single issue reported. As more neighbors came forward, each with their own small horror story about Karen's past behavior, the officers' patience started wearing thin. They asked Karen one last time if she had any formal approval or legal authority to alter someone else's property. All she could do was keep ranting about community guidelines and how rules are rules, even though it was clear she had no real documents to back her up. One officer quietly pulled out a clipboard and began writing something down. The crowd watched in total silence, barely breathing, sensing that something major was about to happen. Karen noticed too. Her posture stiffened, her voice grew sharper, and the excuses started flying faster. Water still gushed onto the street, pooling around the officer's boots, and the situation was spiraling out of her control. Then, without warning, one officer reached for his radio. As the officer spoke into his radio, another squad car pulled up. But this time, it wasn't just more police. A city utility worker stepped out, looking serious as he surveyed the flooded street. Apparently, someone from the crowd had also called the city after seeing the water line burst. And here's where things took an unexpected turn. The utility worker immediately recognized Karen. Turns out, she had a history of filing bogus complaints to the city about random code violations, even trying to report neighbors for things like having the wrong shade of mulch or kids' bikes being left out. The worker's face tightened when he saw the damage. He took one look at the broken water valve and immediately shook his head, telling the officers that this wasn't just property damage. It was tampering with a city-registered utility, a much bigger offense than anyone realized. The stakes had just skyrocketed. Suddenly, this wasn't just a neighborly squabble or a simple HOA overstep. Now, Karen could be facing real criminal charges, and the fine alone could hit thousands of dollars. Karen's confident attitude completely crumbled. She tried to shift the blame onto the homeowner, claiming he installed it wrong. But the utility worker cut her off, pointing out that everything had been fully inspected just weeks before. The crowd leaned in closer, phones recording every second, as the tension reached a boiling point. With the utility worker's confirmation, the officers finally made their move. Calm but firm, they told Karen she was being placed under arrest for criminal mischief and tampering with city property. The crowd, still clutching their phones, gasped and murmured as Karen's face turned ghost white. She tried to argue, claiming it was all just a misunderstanding, but the officers weren't having it. They carefully cuffed her right there in front of the growing group of neighbors who had, for so long, been at the receiving end of her self-imposed HOA tyranny. As Karen was led toward the squad car, she shouted over her shoulder that she was going to sue everyone and shut this whole neighborhood down. But no one was listening anymore. Most people were too busy high-fiving the homeowner and thanking the officers for finally doing something. The busted water line was quickly shut off by the city worker, and plans were already being made to repair the damage. Just when it seemed like the drama was over, the final twist dropped. The HOA president himself showed up, completely furious. But not at the homeowner, at Karen. Turns out, she had been removed from the HOA board months ago for repeated complaints and harassment. She had absolutely no authority, no role, nothing. Everything she claimed was a total lie, and now she was heading straight to face real consequences. In the days that followed, the neighborhood felt completely different. Without Karen patrolling the streets and making everyone's lives miserable, people started coming together more. The homeowner, once seen as just the new guy, quickly became a bit of a local hero. Neighbors who barely spoke before now chatted at their mailboxes, swapping stories about their own crazy run-ins with Karen. As for the HOA, they officially released a statement clearing up that Karen had no authority to act on their behalf and apologized to the homeowner for the chaos she caused. The water line was fully repaired within a week, and the city decided not to fine the homeowner, placing full responsibility on Karen. She faced charges for criminal mischief and tampering with a utility, and while the legal process would take time, it was clear she wouldn't be causing any more trouble anytime soon. This whole mess became a major lesson for the community about standing up against entitled behavior and knowing your rights when it comes to HOA rules and property boundaries. In the end, the neighborhood wasn't just repaired, it was stronger. And for once, peace and quiet returned to the street, without a single sticky note in sight.